In the past many years, we've seen different attempts by Hollywood to break free of that formula that's called the monomyth. The idea that the hero must go on a journey, and that the hero must start in one place and end up at another, not only in physical location, but also in terms of their personality and who they are and what they have accomplished. Hollywood has attempted to break free of it, and yet audiences seem to want it more than ever. We'll discuss why right now. All right, folks, welcome back to another wonderful day here on the WDW Pro channel. What a joy it is that you have elected to join us for a conversation which is not just between two people, but rather is with all of you. Folks, if you like content like this, consider clicking the like button, share, subscribe. And when you click it, you do indeed stick it to the algorithms. It is the notification bell. Joining us today to talk about the monomyth, what it is, how it works, and why it's important is Dr. Mark Montgomery. Sir, welcome to the channel.
Thank you, Pro. I appreciate the invitation.
All right, so today we are talking about the sort of Jungian concept brought forth by Dr. Joseph Campbell, although it was more or less articulated in the past throughout the eons. But the idea of what is the story, why do we do it? Why do we tell these stories? Why do we explain these dramas? It's not like it's necessary. You know, you could go throughout your entire life, theoretically, and never tell stories or listen to stories, you know, and it would not affect what breakfast you have or what job you hold. I don't know, maybe it would, though, because, well, we certainly do it a lot. So, Dr. Mark, could you lead us through what exactly is the monomyth and whether or not it's escapable, or is it actually imprinted in the real architecture of storytelling itself?
Yeah, thank you for that opportunity to talk about monomyth, or the hero's journey. And as Campbell describes it, it has 17 elements that can be used in any combination or left out. And when we understand what is the function of story in our human experience, is that it allows us an opportunity to reflect and interpret life. And so I look at the hero's journey, or the monomyth, as being more of a description, not a prescription about how life should go, but that in the telling of a story or of listening to that story, we might be able to see something in that, in the character and the character's experience, that we might be able to identify with and derive some meaning in our own life and encourage us along the way. So I kind of look at the monomyth as being a way of organizing our thoughts and being able to organize a story. But the problem is that there's a lot that gets missed in our biographies and our autobiographies, in the retelling of a story that perhaps could be very, very valuable, and that just doesn't fit in the category.
So, Dr. Mark, what you're saying then is that the monomyth is more of a reflection of what we need to see in our own lives. In other words, it's not a positive thing in your life to stay in the same place. That's not what produces a meaningful life experience. And perhaps then the story is a reflection. Maybe it's even considered practice for how you would go about your own life. And maybe it's more mundane. Perhaps you are not carrying the one ring to throw it into the lava. But whatever your dragons are that you're trying to overcome in your own life, perhaps the story is this opportunity to role play within that, how you might go from one place to another. Is that accurate?
Absolutely. So as human beings, we are looking for 4 different elements in our life. First of all is what our identity is, what our purpose, and how do we make meaning, and then what destiny that carries us to. And so as we come into some self-awareness or understanding of what life is supposed to be for us and how we can experience that it becomes a way for us to interpret or reinterpret the facts of our life. And so when someone is telling us a story, it gives us a window or a door that enables us to reinterpret some of our past events, and then to understand kind of what our destiny is going. And the problem that we run into, and this is where it gets really, really toxic, is I'll just tell you that when I was in high school, I had an opportunity to do a Reader's Theater production of The Brave New World by Aldous Huxley. And in that, Bernard, the main character, becomes revulsed by what he sees happening in this dystopia world of the future, where even the experience of movies goes into the experience of feelies. They call them feelies instead of movies. So not so much as being able to tell a story or listen to a story, but to experience all of the chemistry that comes from the thrill or the drama of that story, and yet be detached to the point where you're living your life through someone else instead of it catapulting you into a better experience of participating in life, of actually touching human beings, not just simply consuming them. And so it's really, really important that we keep the humanities of arts and entertainment in proper perspective in our life, and not allow it to become a drug or an enslavement of binging all types of content, and then yet not being able to really touch and experience human life as it is has been destined to be.
Well, that comes down to the idea of moderation. Water is a fantastic thing, right? So without water, you won't be around for very long. However, you can also imbibe too much water and cause your system to go down as well. Everything has its proper place, and going too much or too little seems to me to be very problematic. And the same would surely be true with the idea of storytelling and experiencing those stories. If this idea of the hero's journey is indeed all about helping you to go from one place to another in your own life, then if you were to immerse yourself, whether it's in a video game or into movies or binge watching, whatever the case might be, if you immerse yourself to such a degree that you exist in that, well, then you're existing in the practice, but you're never playing the real game.
Absolutely.
Now, Dr. Mark, I think this gets down to something that's deeply biological as well. Tell me what you think about this, and we'll play in this sort of unexplored territory, but I think that probably dreaming is a biological precursor to what we do then with the hero's journey with the story. And I'll explain it this way. So when you go to bed at night, you have these dreams, right? And we really don't understand them very well. Some people think there's greater meaning to dreaming, and some people think that, well, it's just fragmentary thought processes that are taking place from a brain that is idled, and not fully conscious. And we won't go into that topic necessarily here, but it seems to me that deep down into even the biology of the way that we function, that it's inescapable that when we lay ourselves down to go to sleep, that our brain starts telling these stories that are not real, but that are in some way perhaps practicing for what lies ahead, or how we should have done something in the past. Who knows? But it seems to me that down to the biological level, and who knows how far this goes, it could go into other mammals and maybe even farther than that. But right down to the core of this, storytelling is embedded in the biology of us, and we are indeed part of the universe, and therefore storytelling is something that exists in the cosmos. And then the storytelling that we do, what we do is we take that into the conscious realm. So we're no longer unconscious and sort of subjected to the whims of whatever the brain is doing, but instead our conscious selves, right, the mind, under the influence of whatever it is that is us, we then birth out these stories that you would assume have some sort of merit and worth in order to help create a better society, create a better us, etc. Do you think that this is that deeply woven into the fabric of being, the storytelling idea? And does that make it more or less important?
Very important, because what we want to make sure is that we don't miss our uniqueness. So if we look at what the function of dreams are, they're kind of the kidneys of our brain, and they're flushing out all the junk, all the toxins, and giving us kind of a clean slate to work off of the next day. But here, and this is what's really important about the hero's journey as a way of understanding our human life, is that at some point we receive this call, okay, whether it's a higher power or from a friend or a mentor, that calls us out of our ordinary life, and then allows us the experience of writing our own unique story inside of the larger story or history of the world, of humanity, of our interaction with God, and to the point where we experience something that is so unique to us that we can tell that it gives us purpose and meaning to our own life, so that we're not just simply lost in this oblivion of cosmos experience, that we just become a drop in an ocean. That us as a drop, we're unique, each one of us, and we have a unique story to tell, enabling people to see life through our eyes and our experience, so then it also can help them with gaining meaning and purpose in their own life story.
Fantastic. Now you bring up the idea of God or the divine being part of this process as well, perhaps as a target for us to reach. We all, we want to aim higher. And so I was thinking, as you were talking about that, about the story of Abraham from the Torah, and particularly because it's a very, very old story. And when we're talking about the hero's journey, we're looking back to see how far back is this embedded into the human experience. Well, the Abraham story is very, very old. And there's also something there that is important to me as well. And that is that in the telling of the story of Abraham, which again gets back to this idea of the hero's journey, because Abraham is an older, very older man before the God of the Bible speaks to him and says, it's time to get out of your father's household. You need to have an adventure. You need to go. And he's taken out of his land, and he goes on this adventure. But Abraham in the story, he goes from not only one geographical location, but he also has this sort of journey in terms of his personality, his personhood, and his beliefs. But he's not perfect. He's definitely imperfect. And it takes very careful attention, even despite the fact that back then these scrolls would have been very difficult to write on, very expensive. And so every letter costs big money, right? I mean, when we're talking about the way that data storage works today, you only have to go back to look at floppy disks, from 30, 40 years ago to go, okay, well, here's the exponential decrease in the value of data storage. But these scrolls, you've got to understand, if you go back 2,000, 3,000 years, very expensive. Every letter costs big money. And yet the story still takes the time to spend showing that this character is flawed. This father of a religion is extraordinarily flawed. It's a very strange thing. But what we've lost in today's storytelling, it seems to be, Dr. Mark, is that, and perhaps this is why audiences are turning away from some storytelling, is that we have gotten away from the idea that our heroes have to be in a flawed place in order to journey to something better. And so then our heroes stay in the same place. They enter into the story unflawed, invincible, and then they exit in the same way, and then there's no relatability. What do you make of the idea of flawed heroes and the necessity of that?
Well, I think it's absolutely authentic and real to have flawed heroes. And this is where we're reaching the point of exhaustion when it comes to trying to find something new, something that people can really relate about. And I will tell you that I think that people are getting really turned off by the unrealness of some of these stories. Part of the story of the fall of humanity has been this exchange for the way that we were created in the image of God to be fully human, not gods, but be fully human. And the temptation to ascend beyond that, to evolve to something superhuman, to this natural desire to transcend who we are. But that's unrealistic, because we were never designed to be superhuman, to be more than human. And ironically, in the whole impulse to become self-absorbed and through self-will and self-effort and self-glorification, that we try to become superhuman, we set up this avatar of a false self that's unsustainable. We run out of juice to fuel that.
That's the selfie syndrome, yes?
That's right. And so in this self-absorption, or looking in the pool of Narcissus, which really is what a lot of our movies are now, is a murky pool to reflect something not quite clear about us. But we actually devolve, or I call it devolution, to become a little less human, incrementally, almost imperceptibly. But then even our sense of human reaction and interactions and relatability. Again, it goes back to Bernard and Brave New World, that instead of relating to people, we consume them. They become meat to us, instead of being the subject of human beings that have worth, have something unique to contribute in the interplay of life.
Dr. Mark, one of the things that I try to do on this channel is, and I was asked about this the other day by someone who works on the team with us. They were asking, how do you handle the types of numbers that you've been seeing in terms of growth? And my response to them was that when we do these videos, that what I'm attempting to do is to have a conversation with my guest, and then I sort of invite in another person to listen to us. And that's how I conceptualize it in my mind, because to handle the type of scale that you can have when you have tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of people listening and viewing, you can lose those individuals into the audience, right, into the crowd. And that's what I think is also happening with these movies. I think perhaps when we incorporated CGI into our abilities, when we incorporated the spectacle of modern movies, we may have forgotten that the core essence of the story is the individual, and that no matter what you may think about the scalability of what you can do with movies, that the individual is so immensely interesting that you should never lose sight of that, because that is the locus of consciousness. That is the I don't know how to even describe how important the individual is. Can you walk me through that as we wrap up our very first conversation? I'd love to have you come back on the channel again in the future to discuss these deeply important concepts. But how important is the individual?
Absolutely. Great question. And this is where part of our exhaustion and our sense of, coming up from this thrill, this adrenaline high, to back to real life and experience the cortisol, the stress, the depression that follows that kind of exhaustion. And then needing to get our fix again by having another thrill or binging another movie and experiencing that sense of well-being again. But this is what's so critical about our human life and becoming more, restoring our humanity once again, is that we need to be responding to our own call to live life and to participate in life. And there is in the monomyth this sense of resistance to respond to that call, to the adventure of going from the known to the unknown, like Elsa in the Frozen 2, is to have that sense of courage and bravery to live our unique life out, and to accomplish our purpose, to arrive at our destiny. So if you look at history, it's not linear, and it's not a cyclical pattern that doesn't go anywhere like Greek and Roman thought, but it's more like a slinky that's laid on its side. It's a spiral that's going someplace. There are cycles in the story, but it is actually taking us someplace, and every person experiences life a little differently. And I'm always curious as to find out what is it unique for that other individual, and what is their story to tell as they make meaning and they accomplish their purpose in life.
I love the analogy of the slinky, because in life it can feel like you're going in circles. And I clearly see the intent behind this analogy, but you're spinning in circles. And sometimes in life, you're spinning and spinning. That slinky's very highly condensed, and you don't feel as if you're going anywhere. And then something happens, and boom, the slinky is pulled and stretched. And those circles that you've been doing, those cycles, those days of your life, suddenly really vault you into some new place. and that's the hero's journey. And if
It
people
was.
are using the hero's journey appropriately, consuming it within moderation, but in the right way, and it's the best form of the hero's journey, then that will send you into a realm where you can role play what you could do in your own life, big or small. And so
Right.
I think that's a fantastic analogy. I really, really appreciate that. I may have to steal that from you. Dr. Mark, I am so happy that you've come on. I look forward to having these discussions in the future. Where can people find you on this great, big, beautiful web if they would so choose?
So right now I'm just anchored in kfcn.org, which is the place where I'm situated in my own life work. And so it sounds like Kentucky Fried Chicken with an N.org. So, but they're welcome to that. I'm writing a book right now that will help to kind of give honor to a lot of the concepts that we're talking about. And so I would welcome anybody's interaction on that. And I'm curious as to what adults or teenagers or even older adults are really experiencing in life, and how they're actually activating their own imagination instead of always participating only in someone else's imagination or interpretation of life that leaves nothing to their imagination available.
Folks, the message of this video, I think, can be best summarized as get out there and live.
Absolutely.
Go have your adventure. Go have your journey. Don't just live it out through the fictional characters that you've been given. And certainly do not accept less than fictional characters who do not evolve, do not grow, do not change. If you do so, then you may find yourself in that same funk. Find those great heroes that can send you on your way, and then get at it. You've got this life, so go do something great with it. The people
Absolutely.
around you will be so much happier when you finish that journey because you were brave enough to take it in the first place. Dr. Mark, thank you so much for being here with us. Folks, if you like content like this, consider clicking the like button, share, subscribe, and when you click it, you stick it to the algorithms. It is the notification bell. The conversation here comes to a conclusion, but the commentary begins. Drop a comment down below. We care about your comments. We covet them. Let us know what's in your mind. We do read them. We do respond. And folks, don't forget that the Pro Show is Thursdays, 5 to 7 p.m. Eastern Time, each and every Thursday. You do not want to miss out as we continue to explain entertainment and keep you ahead of the culture curve. So, as we always say here on the show, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, keep learning, keep growing, and keep having fun.
Floral, it's time for you to walk the plank.
What? Why?
Cuz you haven't subscribed to WDW Pro yet. Nor bookmark thatparkplace.com on your web browser to get great articles from great contributors.
What?